hired lobbyists to investigate the personal, political and religious background of the reporter behind a story about the think tank's donations. It's reported the group paid £36,000 to APCO, a US lobbying firm, to discredit the Sunday Times by falsely suggesting links to Russia. At the current rate of progress, the gender pay gap won't close for another 30 years. That's a warning from the TUC. The union says the gap currently stands at 12.8%. That's the equivalent to more than £2,500 less a year for the average working woman. That means they effectively work 47 days of the year for free compared to men. In education, the disparity is 17%, while in the finance and insurance sector, it rises to 27%. The UK Health Security Agency says several children are receiving hospital treatment after a fast-spreading measles outbreak in North London. Dozens of infections have been confirmed across 7 schools in Enfield. A local GP surgery says 1 in 5 of the infected children were hospitalised and all of them had not been fully vaccinated. The virus is one of the most infectious diseases, and while many people recover, it can lead to serious complications. And a yellow weather warning for snow and ice has covered most of Scotland and large parts of England overnight. Meanwhile, the Environment Agency is urging people to remain vigilant amid the ongoing flood risk. More than 70 flood warnings and 160 flood alerts are in place across England. You're up to date. I'll have a full roundup for you at midday.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you very much, Bethany Elsey. So Keir Starmer has survived in office, but many think that his authority is shattered. It seems likely that the government will shift leftwards to appease his backbenchers, and many speculate that he may be replaced before long, probably by a candidate from the left. Does that make the government's purpose clearer? Does it help Labour, for example, against the Greens and the SNP? Or does it, on the other hand, open up fresh opportunities for the parties on the right? Joining me now is my panel, the former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire and Policy Fellow of Onward, Andrew Barclay. Welcome to you both. Scarlett, if you recall my last question, what is your reaction to that question? Who benefits from all this?
I actually think at the moment the person who's benefited from this week is Keir Starmer. I mean, he began the week incredibly weak. He then made an amazing speech. I mean, a really surprising speech to his MPs at the Parliamentary Labour Party meeting and got their support. And I've watched the change and it has been quite incredible. I mean, of course, there are people on manoeuvres. Let's not kid each other. There are people who have been wanting to take over from him for a long time. I mean, there's nothing new about that. But actually, I think he really is. He's much stronger, that people feel that this time that he'll be himself. I mean, remember, one of the reasons that he is so unpopular is people feel they don't know what he stands for and he's inauthentic. And actually, what the people in the new people, or the people who are left in number 10 are now saying is, OK, be authentic, be Keir, be the Keir that we heard at the meeting, be the Keir that actually I saw on TV the next night. I mean, that he really... And actually, instead of saying what people think you should be saying, say what you really think. And I think it could make a difference.
May I raise a sceptical eyebrow? I've quite often been on that committee corridor in the House of Commons where the parties meet in Committee Room 14, and it's been decided in advance that there's going to be a show of support for the Prime Minister. That had been decided because the Cabinet had all tweeted their support. They were worried about what Anwar Sawad had said in Scotland. So there are actually then absurd scenes where people bang the desks and cheer and holler and scream and say how marvellous the performance of the Prime Minister has been. And yet we all know that nearly all of them think that the Prime Minister is going to be gone before long. And that as for the Munich Security Conference, I, as a Briton, feel quite humiliated that our Prime Minister travelled to Munich and made a speech about Reform UK and the Green Party in the United Kingdom. He was on a by-election rant when he was meant to be at an international security conference. I don't see, as you see, the Prime Minister's position strengthened? Discuss.
No, discuss. OK, first of all, I have spoken to people who were in that room, cabinet ministers, right, and they do say genuinely there was a change and they'd never seen Keir like that before, is that he became a new person. I mean, I think he was wrong to talk about the Greens and reform in Munich, but I think a tiny bit of his speech was clipped and the rest actually... I mean, frankly, Michael, one of the places that Keir has been really good is on foreign, right? Is on the international stage. He has really done an awful lot to try and, keep Trump slightly... So, I mean, without him... Ukraine, we probably would have lost Ukraine by now. He's been working really hard to keep the Americans in line.
I might be with you here because I think I'd probably rather Keir Starmer stayed than went, because I can see that the people coming after that would be worse from my particular personal point of view. But are you really telling me that the change is that on Monday the Prime Minister is in peril and now you can see the Prime Minister easily surviving until the next general election?
I don't say easily surviving. I think there's a real test. And I think people were very, very, very angry. And I think one of the reasons people were angry with an awful lot of women, and he had to deal with them on Wednesday, the women in the Parliamentary Labour Party saying, you're the man who said you'd stick up for us. You're the man who, as Director of Public Prosecutions, started doing the rape, prosecuting the rape gangs. You rewrote the stuff on rape victims. And then you allow Peter Mandelson, knowing that he knew Epstein after he'd been thinking, to be ambassador, and Keir had to apologise. And Keir understands finally that this boys' club that had been operating in Number 10, which really was appalling, has got to change. He's got to actually. And one of the problems for Keir Starmer was actually his relations with the backbenchers, because he just wasn't seeing them enough. And he knows he's got to change all of that. I mean, whether it happens, I don't know. I am an optimist.
Andrew, do you mind if we go back to the original question? If Sir Keir Starmer is moving to the left, you may wish to debate that.
Yeah.
Who would it benefit? Would it benefit Labour in their battle against the Greens and the SNP? Does it give new opportunities for the parties of the right?
I don't actually think it does. I think it's almost inevitably going to go leftwards. But I think if it does that, it takes them further away from the core promise of the last manifesto, why the British people sent them there, which was first and foremost economic growth, fiscal responsibility, restoring financial competence. Based on the people that I sort of speak to, the small business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs, that's why they gave Labour a chance. And that's clearly not been a priority for Starmer. And I think everyone's actually quite frightened that it's most certainly not going to be a position for anyone who replaces him. It's definitely not a position for Andy Burnham, who's talking about the bond markets in a pretty scary way, or many of the backbenchers. So I think I actually might agree with Scarlett that we might be in the best position with Starmer staying there, because anything that comes after that won't be aligned with the mission that the British public have sent them there to do.
But hasn't your answer just said that there is opportunities for the parties on the right?
I think the opportunities for the party on the right are already entrenched, because based on the people that I speak to, a little bit like the Tories in 2024, the sense of betrayal and mistrust, and actually, quite frankly, the brand has become so toxic amongst the business community. The Labour brand has become so toxic amongst the business community that a new personnel change, a new leader, a new policy here and there, I don't think is going to make a huge amount of difference. The damage has already been done.
I mean, for example, on the issue of the European Union,
yeah,
very clear message came out of the Munich Security Conference that the United Kingdom would wish to be closer to the European Union. And already we're discussing ways in which, for example, we might accept their net zero policies. We would give up our own autonomy in that respect. Is that likely to lead to a feeling of betrayal amongst what we called the Red Wall back in 2019? You know, the people who were actually very angry with the European Union, who did support Brexit, who presumably, at least in some numbers, voted Labour then in 2024, and voted Labour perhaps not least because Labour said it was not going back to the European Union.
It definitely is a betrayal, and it's part of that same theme of U-turn after U-turn, after betrayal after betrayal. The public, as you said, the Red Wall, clearly want this country to go in a different direction. The business community wants it to go in a different direction, to deregulate, to lower taxes, to get behind business. That's why Starmer said it in the election manifesto, that we are economic growth is the #1 priority, we are pro-business. And then they've gone and done the opposite. The sort of European-style regulatory framework, the net zero, that is what's caused all the problems in this country, right? That is why people voted for Brexit. That is why people voted for economic competence, ending the Liz Truss saga and voting in someone who looked like he was the grown-up. And I think going back to the EU, sort of with cap in hand, is just a sign of a floundering Prime Minister with no philosophy.
Scarlett, tell us about the mentality of the Labour Party. If it does now move to the left, if that's what it's demanding of Sir Keir Starmer, is that simply because the people in the party think that that's what they ought to do, that's their belief? Or is it that they want to regain support from the Greens, from the Gaza candidates, and they want the best chance against the SNP in Scotland?
But it's you who's saying they're moving to the left, right? It's you who's saying these are where the candidates come from. I mean, actually, if we have to remember that the new MPs, right, were practically hand-picked. I mean, Morgan McSweeney called them the Starmer troopers because he made sure that there were no left-wing MPs who were going to be elected.
So is it now your contention that there are no left-wing MPs?
No, not particularly. And so that's what's so interesting about the rebellion is it's not a rebellion about the left. I mean, the big rebellion was welfare, and it was done for two reasons. One was they were feeling ignored. Nobody had gone and talked to them. But actually, to dress up as a reform, actually just a cut in welfare, was not going to work. Now, if you look at what's going to happen in a few weeks, which is for schools, right, that's going to be very difficult. But actually, weeks, months of talking to parents, talking to children, talking to MPs have gone on. This isn't about cutting. This is about reforming. And that's what went wrong before.
Andrew, you and I have agreed, Scarlett does not, that Labour appears to be moving to the left. Why are they doing it? Simply because they believe it, or because it gives them the best chance against those other three groups on the left?
Well, I think it probably helps them restore this sort of sense of internal mission. But the key point is it certainly isn't a mission that the public have sent them on, because the public sent them, as far as I can tell, and from the people I speak to, the public sent them on a mission about economic growth, about fiscal responsibility. And that doesn't... I mean, the only person who's been talking about that in the Labour Party, unfortunately, was those texts between Mandelson and Streeting, which is about economic growth. There's no leadership contenders who's saying, let's deregulate, let's listen to business, let's actually grow the economy. It's all about sort of internal Labour issues.
This is absolute nonsense.
So sorry.
It really is.
No more time at the moment. But I thank Scarlett Maguire and Andrew Barclay for the time being. They'll be back at noon to discuss the ethics of passing the buck. Coming up, a former Chief of Defence Staff warns that Britain's armed forces have been hollowed out following years of underinvestment. I'll speak to the contributing editor at Defence on the Brink and the Spectator World contributor, Elliot Wilson. This is Sunday with Mike Portillo, only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Mike Portillo. General Cynics Carter, a former chief of the Defence Staff, argues that the Army could field little more than 10,000 combat troops, that the Royal Navy can deploy only around 10 warships, and that the Royal Air Force operates at a fraction of the number of aircraft that it once did. Meanwhile, stockpiles of missiles and munitions run dangerously low. He fears that unless Britain urgently modernises and rebuilds its capabilities, we risk becoming what he calls an analogue military fighting in a digital war. Joining me now is contributing editor Defence on the Brink and the Spectator World contributor Elliot Wilson. Welcome back to the programme, Elliot. Great to see you. I was doing some calculations. The GDP of Israel is $610 billion. It spends 8.8% on defence. That takes us to $54 billion. Britain spends on defence £66 billion, which is approximately $90 billion. Therefore, Britain is getting on for twice as much as Israel on defence. According to Nick Carter, that enables us to put fewer than 10,000 men in the field and put 10 ships in the water, while Israel is able to defeat 4 enemies simultaneously and provide itself with an Iron Dome anti-missile defence system for its population. So I put it to you that it appears, prima facie, that the problem is not that we spend too little on defence, but that we spend it very badly.
I think that's largely true. I mean, I think we do need to spend more on defence because the world is getting much more dangerous and threats are becoming more diffuse and more varied. But I think poor investment and mismanagement is a huge issue. You know, the procurement for the armed forces is a disaster. It has been for decades. We can't get armoured vehicles into the field in less than about 15, 20 years. We may have to scrap some of them. We don't know. Some of them have been pensioned off with no replacements. We also have the kind of sunk cost of the nuclear deterrent. I mean, Israel probably has nuclear weapons. Everybody thinks they do, though they don't declare them. But it's nothing like the kind of system that we have of continuous at-sea deterrence. And one of the issues with the nuclear deterrent is that there's a limit to how much you can save on it. It is a kind of fixed cost below which you can't go. So there are a number of problems. We do need to spend more money, but yes, we certainly need to spend what we do spend more efficiently and more effectively.
There are examples of programmes that go catastrophically wrong. I think £5 billion has been spent on a new armoured vehicle for the Army. There's now doubt as to whether the thing could operate at all. In your experience, I mean, maybe I should be asking myself this question because I've been in the position. Does anyone try to grasp this management issue? I remember that Michael Heseltine and Peter Levine did. Michael Heseltine was in the position even before I did. And they brought, business acumen to the Ministry of Defence. But I certainly don't think they had any lasting impact on improving its efficiency.
I think people have tried to grapple with it from time to time, and we should say that the government has now reorganised the Ministry of Defence and appointed a new National Armaments Director who has only been in place a few months. We'll see what happens there. But there are a number of problems. One of them, of course, is that people within the Ministry of Defence, both military and civilian, move every 2 or 3 years. So it's quite rare for somebody to have ownership over a programme which lasts 10, 15 years, which of course suits people perfectly well if it goes disastrously wrong, because you can say, well, I was there for the good bit of it. So I think there's a lack of accountability. The fact that we haven't sacked a general officer since at least the Falklands for not doing his job properly is quite astonishing, I think, because nobody can deny that we have made some failures in those times. So there is a lack of accountability, a lack of continuity, a lack of institutional memory. We're also operating often with only one potential supplier, and if you have one potential supplier, they can take you to the cleaners. OK, I exactly wanted to come to that point. We broadly have a policy of buying British, which, as you imply, broadly means buying from British Aerospace. So British Aerospace supplies, BAE as it's now called, supplies a remarkable range of products. And one could argue that quite a lot of them show quite poor value for money. So is one policy option to buy equipment from other countries, in particular to buy equipment that works, that's already been demonstrated elsewhere? I'll tell you a little anecdote about this. My first week in the job, I purchased from the Americans the Apache attack helicopter on the basis that it worked. After I left office, I asked why I hadn't seen any publicity about it coming into service. They said, oh, after you left the office, Michael, it was decided to insert a British gearbox, and it's not worked since. And these are the sorts of things that go on. But is it an option to buy foreign and to buy stuff that works? I think it certainly should be more an option which is looked at. I mean, we have a very strong bias in favour of buying British, which is not bad in principle, but the other problem we have is that we tend to gold plate things. We say, right, can we have this, but can it also do 2 or 3 other things? And then we wait a couple of years while the project rumbles on, we say, oh, can it also do this? And you end up with ludicrously over-elaborate solutions to relatively simple problems. Ajax, the armoured fighting vehicle, is a good example. We could have had a Swedish version in service which was ready in 2010 when General Dynamics was given the contract for Ajax. That was off the shelf. We refused because it wasn't going to be built in Britain. Actually, its then owners offered to make some of it in Britain at the old Vickers site in Newcastle. But we went with the Ajax programme, and we still don't have any in the field, and we may have spent £5.5 billion and may not get anything for it. So I think buying off the shelf is something we need to look at a lot more. It's what most countries do. Poland is doing that a lot at the moment. So it certainly should be higher up the list of priorities than it is, I think. So Keir Starmer has been talking in Munich about cooperation with European allies, and you might be surprised to hear me say that maybe this is an interesting line to pursue as well. Because Britain tries to do, if not everything, certainly a very large number of things in defence across a very wide field. You've said from nuclear deterrence through aircraft carriers, air defence, air attack, troops that can fight anywhere in the world, etc., etc., etc. Early air warning, all these things are part of what we do. Should we be specialising and saying, right, the Germans do this, the Belgians do that, the British do the other? It's something I think we've got to look at. I mean, as you say, we still try to conduct a sort of full-spectrum armed forces on a miniature scale. We're trying to be a sort of very small America. And I think we need to have a serious conversation about whether there are elements that we just can't perform anymore. I mean, this is part of NATO doctrine. The kind of idea of specialisation has been around in NATO for a long time. I think one of the worrying things is that the European response to America pulling back from NATO to an extent has been, oh, well, NATO is completely screwed, we'll go off and do an EU-based thing. And I think it would be much more sensible to say, well, OK, America is diminishing its support, but let's try and keep the European core of NATO going, do things through NATO, which is a tried and tested mechanism, and which already has things like burden sharing and specialisation hardwired into it, and see if we can do that first before throwing it out in the bin completely just because Trump takes against it. Elliot, a couple of times there you said we need to have a conversation about. And it seems to me that in the 5 minutes you and I have been talking, we've identified maybe 4 or 5 headings for that conversation. Is there any chance that this conversation will actually take place?
And by the way, who would be the interlocutors?
Well, it's interesting. The Strategic Defence Review talks about, having a national conversation and a sort of whole society approach to defence. That came out in June last year. There hasn't really been a conversation. I think, politicians need to be a lot more honest with people. In terms of defence, they need to be a lot more honest that this is going to cost more. That's going to mean cuts elsewhere unless we can achieve the magic of economic growth. And that we need to think about whether there are some things we can no longer do, rather than ending up not doing them typically because we can't afford them. We don't currently have proper amphibious landing ships, but that's not because we decided we didn't need them. That's because we couldn't afford to keep them going. So I think there needs to be a much greater degree of honesty, and I think the Prime Minister needs to take a lead and say this is the situation, and there are real hard choices, not just hard choices he talks about, but ones that actually have to be made.
I'm tempted to say pigs might fly, but anyway, it's very nice to talk to you, Elliot Wilson. Revelations continue to emerge about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's association with the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. I'll discuss that with the royal historian and journalist Alexander Larman. This is Sunday with Mike Portillo, only on GB News.
Hello there, and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Hope you enjoyed the sunshine yesterday, but it is starting to turn a bit more wet with some blustery showers across the rest of the weekend, which it will continue into the new week as well. But there will be some sunnier spells in between, but we do have this band of rain which is moving eastwards across the UK for the rest of this afternoon. It did bring some snow showers overnight last night, but a lot of that snow is now confined towards the southeast of England amongst this persistent rain that we have for the rest of this afternoon. There is some clearer spells across southern England and Wales as well as Northern Ireland, but temperatures here around sort of 10 or 11 degrees, a little bit colder up towards the north where that cloud is a little bit persistent and we're not seeing too many breaks for the afternoon. Now that rain across the southeast will push its way off towards the North Sea. Like I said, there are a few breaks across southern England and Wales, so it will be a brighter end towards the day in between those showers. But further north, that cloud is remaining pretty persistent through the afternoon. We will see a few breaks across northern Scotland as well, but a few of these showers across those Scottish mountains are turning to snow for much of the afternoon as well. Now, as we go through this evening and overnight, those showers will continue to feed in from the northwest. There will be a few breaks across the south, once again, where those showers do start to ease, but it should be a relatively frost-free night, even in those breaks, so temperatures staying above freezing. But towards the northeast of Scotland, where we do have more prolonged breaks in that cloud, temperatures here will dip below freezing, and we could see a touch of frost first thing Monday morning. Now, Monday is much the same. Those showers are continuing through much of the morning. Some of them could be pretty heavy and quite blustery through the afternoon, but there will be some sunnier breaks towards the south and towards the northeast. But temperatures, once again, around the seasonal average between sort of 7 and 10 degrees.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Mike Portillo. Democrats in the United States Congress claim that the former Cabinet Minister Peter Mandelson may hold critical information about Jeffrey Epstein's associates and enablers. Meanwhile, the media have focused on emails that suggest that the King's brother, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, may have shared confidential information supplied to him by the government with Epstein and others. I'm joined now by the royal historian Alexander Larman. Alexander, it's marvellous to see you. It occurred to me that if we went back, say, to the beginning of the year, if we went back about 6 weeks, I think Andrew then was still sort of arguing the toss about whether he should leave his home in Windsor. A very negative book had emerged about him and his former wife, Fergie, and things seemed pretty bad. It was quite hard for people like me to imagine that things would get much worse, and yet they have deteriorated rather radically, haven't they?
I think that's the understatement of the year so far, Michael. I think that what's fair to say is that we are now in uncharted territory, not just for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor himself, but for the rest of the royal family, because I think at this point, things can very much get worse. And just to run down the things that I would suspect to be quite likely in the next few weeks, I would be astonished if Andrew wasn't interviewed under police caution about some of the confidential documents that he's said to have been leaking to Jeffrey Epstein. I think there's a very good chance that as a result of these conversations, he might be arrested. And this is just something that has not happened to a member of the royal family ever. And I think this was something that I need to stress to your viewers, that we are in territory where the previous, if you will, low watermark for the royal family was Princess Royal being up in court because her dog was off its lead and it bit another dog. So this is territory which we simply cannot even begin to imagine. And of course, Andrew has always protested his innocence, and obviously until he is interviewed under police caution and if he is arrested, we still have to offer him the presumption of some kind of innocence. But on the other hand, the fact that the king has dealt with him in this fashion of literally ordering him out of his house of Royal Lodge in the middle of the night and housing him on Sandringham until further notice, it's very clear that the game is up for Andrew. And the question now that I don't know at this point, you don't know, none of us know, is how much worse is it going to get? Because new information's emerging all the time, and there's a possibility that the Mandelson scandal, which is obviously taking place in parallel to this, might yet actually affect this as well, because essentially Epstein is like this rising tide of filth that gathers all hold boats, isn't it? And I think the fact is things can always get worse for Andrew. And the question that we have to ask then is, will things get worse for the royal family?
Well, you're a thoughtful chap and you've written about this subject a great deal. Have you considered what are the options for His Majesty the King? As you say, what is happening now is unprecedented, and therefore it might be reasonable to expect that the reaction of the monarchy will also be unprecedented. What are the options?
Well, this is where I don't envy the king in the slightest, because the king has already pressed the nuclear button. He's already stripped Andrew of all of his titles. He's already thrown him out of his home. Because, I mean, one thing that I've said in the past is that, yes, of course, the option remains available to the king to throw him out of Sandringham and allow him to lead his life as a private citizen. But imagine if in a kind of Sue Townsend, Queen and I situation, Andrew is forced to live on some rough council estate somewhere. Well, we, the taxpayer, would then directly be paying for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. And that's not something that we would want. But what I think is more likely at this stage, rather than Andrew being thrown to the figurative wolves, is that there is a great deal of interest in the crimes that Andrew may or may not have committed. And of course, the question at the moment is less about whether Andrew was having sex with girls who were trafficked for that precise purpose, because ultimately, there is a certain degree, for instance, the ages of consent in Britain and America are different. So what would be considered a crime in this country, what would be considered a crime in America may not be considered a crime in this country. So if a prosecutor or if a police force wanted to go after Andrew, you might be better off not trying to convict him on any sort of sex charges, but instead to look at these charges, as with Mandelson, of passing on privileged information to Epstein. And I think it's a bit like Al Capone being done for tax evasion, isn't it? That if we want to see, and I'm not entirely sure that people do, but this might be the situation that we're in, if we want to see a senior member of the royal family actually going to prison, this might be the basis on which he does.
Well, for example, one option it occurs to me that the king does have is he might say that he expects Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to go to the police and to make a statement, to offer that, rather than waiting for them to come to him. Or perhaps His Majesty could say that he expects his younger brother to go to the United States to cooperate with congressional and other inquiries. Are those options?
I think that in the first case, Andrew would be very, very well advised to get the best lawyer he can, and then to go to the police and offer every single detail of his involvement with Epstein. But of course, We must bear in mind that Andrew continues to deny he's done anything wrong, that there's no acceptance, even despite the fact that we have these fairly damning and fairly incriminating emails, that he's done anything that would be considered a criminal offence. And of course, if he goes to America, lest we forget this loan stroke gift that the late Queen gave Andrew of £12 million to pay off Virginia Giuffre. That was largely given so that he didn't have to go to America and testify in any kind of court, because the second that Andrew sets foot in America, he is opening himself up to all kinds of criminal charges there, because there's an awful lot of live Epstein stuff involving sex trafficking charges, but involving things like wire fraud, minors being transported across county lines, which are not necessarily crimes in this country, but would be crimes in America. So if he sets foot in America to testify to Congress, I'm not sure he's going to be coming back here, you know.
No man or woman is responsible for the actions of his or her brother. The king is not responsible for the actions of his brother. Is this damaging the monarchy, and should it?
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. The king is not his brother's keeper. But the problem is that the firm, as it's known, has always thrived on the fact that people around the firm have operated on the long-held principle of never complain, never explain. And of course, one of the reasons for the longevity, if you will, the success of the monarchy has meant that it is a public institution which is run privately. It is essentially a few people, a few very powerful people who have this huge amount of money and wealth. And in exchange, they're being public servants. They're essentially allowed to lead these private lives. Now, what we've been seeing over the last few months, even for the past few years, is that Andrew Mountbatten's Windsor private life is a pretty reprehensible one. In terms of this figure being at the heart of the monarchy, it's obviously damaging for the monarchy. But as I wrote in The Spectator this week, as I wrote in The Critic this week, in fact, there is no question that republicanism is actually having any kind of second wind, because ultimately there isn't a Republican movement in this country. I mean, you can see what's going on. You can see the fact that there is obviously deep, deep discontent with Andrew. But so far, although this is damaging reputation for the monarchy, this has not actually spread out into the monarchy politic. I mean, Charles, William, Kate, the Queen, all of these people are still popular. I mean, there's the odd heckle, but nobody has actually seriously suggested that they are affected by any of this in any sense. So,
Alexander?
I don't think it's damaging yet.
I was going to cut you off there, and that was a very good conclusion. Thank you very much. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has always denied all of the allegations of wrongdoing against him. And to reiterate, there have been no criminal charges brought against him. And I thank Alexander Larman very much for his contribution. Now, the world-famous Cirque du Soleil OVO will be tumbling into the studio before its upcoming stint at the Royal Albert Hall. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're heading to Europe this half term, well, it's a mixed bag out there. Outbreaks of rain and some heavy showers and thunderstorms. Best of the sunshine, though, really confined to the Canary Islands and towards the south of Spain. Otherwise, outbreaks of rain across Portugal and northern Spain. Across the Mediterranean, that's where we're going to see areas of showers and thunderstorms pushing their way through. Otherwise, best of the sunshine really across the Canary Islands, highs of 25.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jude Sinker with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. The circus has come to town. Cirque du Soleil OVO is back in London for its annual run at the Royal Albert Hall. The circus troupe is performing OVO, which means egg in Portuguese. OVO is a celebration of the insect world, with at its heart a love story between a quirky fly, a spirited ladybug, and a mysterious egg. With me now is the creative director of Cirque du Soleil, Lydia Harper. Lydia, fantastic to see you. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What's your present position and where did you come from in the Cirque du Soleil?
Absolutely. Hello, nice to be here. I'm Lydia. I'm the artistic director of OVO by Cirque du Soleil, and I've been working in this role for about 3 years now. I started working with Cirque du Soleil in 2015 as a performer. I was an acrobat in a show called Taruk the First Flight, which was inspired by the movie's Avatar. So I was all painted blue and had a tail, did all sorts of acrobatic crazy things.
To be creative director is a tremendous role. Now, OVO is a show that has been staged before, but you have reimagined it. And I suppose a lot of the reimagination has been done by you personally, has it?
Well, in collaboration with
surely
a huge team of people from all across the world. Yes, OVO's been around since 2009. It was originally created by Deborah Corker, who's a Brazilian dance choreographer, live art specialist. And 15 years, 16 years is quite a long time to keep a show running, so we often go through restaging periods, and we've just done one of them. Last year, we spent about 4 months in Montreal recreating all of OVO. So now we've got new characters, new music, new stories, new costumes, and the whole world is rebuilt. We've got a completely new set design as well.
So in short, if I've seen OVO before, I shouldn't think, oh, I don't want to go to that because I've seen it before, because it's all different.
It's entirely different. You've never seen this OVO before. We've got never before seen acts in Cirque du Soleil, and a lot of joy and happiness comes out of this show.
Now, it so happens that you haven't come alone to the studio today. Sergei Bracha is also here. He's behind me, and hello. He is obviously now beginning to do some juggling, and very splendid he is. By the way, what a wonderful costume. Lydia, I once went to the Cirque du Soleil in Montreal, and I was dressed up in a costume not too dissimilar from that one. I was a sort of green bug. I must say I enjoyed it very much indeed. Tell me a bit about the spirit of the circus. What are your inspirations? What do you want people to feel? You're so different from every circus that came before. What is the difference?
The thing for me that makes Cirque du Soleil special, and particularly with OVO, is it's about making the impossible possible right in front of your eyes. So you come and see the show, you get immersed into a completely new world, and you're fully transported away from the day-to-day life. OVO, as you say, it's about insects. It's a day in the life of the bugs. We have a colony. We've got. It's about making them micro macro, and really, really bringing the audience in and completely taking them away from maybe a rainy Sunday morning, and it's perfect escapism.
Should we let Sagi go on? Yeah, no, we'll let him go on. He's doing very well over there. One of the things that always worries me when I go to a circus is the risks that people are taking. How do you feel about risk? For instance, you were a performer. How did you feel about risk then?
Risk management is one of the biggest parts of my job, as well as any performer's job. It's important that you understand the risk and the safety elements that need to be part of what you do. We have people who've been training their entire lives to do this. We've got ex-Olympians in the show, we've got gymnasts who've done world championships, and we've got dancers and people from all different backgrounds who've been working on this for their whole lives. So we mitigate risk in as many ways as possible by making sure we rehearse daily. We have a lot of safety mechanisms in place, and we tour with 2 physiotherapists who help keep all the acrobats in good shape so they can help figure out how to do that rehab and prehab to avoid any injuries.
Well, Sagi has for the moment ceased to juggle. Sagi, would you come over and join us, please? Hope he's here.
He's on his way.
Here he comes. Hello. Come onto the sofa. Thank you very much for your performance.
My pleasure.
Tell me a little bit about your background. When did you join Cirque du Soleil?
I joined Cirque du Soleil about 3 years ago, and it was a dream that came true. Because I watched the show when I was 5, I believe, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do in life when I watched it for the first time.
Well, if you had that dream as a young person, how did you prepare yourself? Did you have to be immensely fit?
Yeah, I guess so. I was juggling my whole life.
Really?
Yeah. I started when I was 7, I believe. And since then, I spend hours every day throwing and catching and dropping and...
So, I mean, it's like being a musician. You have to be practicing all the time.
Yes.
Tell me a bit about your costume.
My costume. So I'm a firefly. Each costume is a bug, a different bug, a different insect. So I'm a firefly. So I'm very happy and lighty. And yeah, it's made in Montreal, in IHQ, the international headquarters. And that's my costume.
What's it like being part of Cirque du Soleil? Is it like a family?
It is like a family. We are together all the time, and we travel the world together. And we eat together, we sleep in the same hotel, we in the same bus together. So it is a big family.
And many of you depend upon each other for your safety.
Correct.
I mean that you build a relationship. You're like an army. You rely upon each other for your safety.
Yeah, correct. With not only the artist, with the whole crew, with the whole team, all of the technicians, artistic. So it is a family. We do trust each other, and it's a very happy work environment.
And a very international family.
Absolutely.
Have you any idea, actually maybe Lydia would have more ideas, any idea how many nationalities are represented in Cirque du Soleil OVO?
Yes, we have about 102 people on tour and about between 27 and 28 different nationalities from around the world. So there's a lot of different languages, a lot of different cultures, and a lot of different experiences and backgrounds that all come together.
Sagi, where are you from?
I'm from Israel.
Are you?
Yeah.
Right. I was guessing South America. I was far...
My family is from Argentina. Like my mother's family is from Argentina.
I can be forgiven for that. Tell me a little bit about the Royal Albert Hall. Have you performed at the Royal Albert Hall before?
No.
OK, so let me ask you. Royal Albert Hall, it's one of the locations you come back to again and again. Is there anything special about the Royal Albert Hall?
The Royal Albert Hall is the pinnacle of any Cirque du Soleil performer's kind of career within Cirque. The first time I ever saw Cirque du Soleil was when I was 15 years old in the Royal Albert Hall as a special treat for Christmas. I was just getting into circus school, and everybody was very excited to take me. And so it's absolutely out of this world to bring a show back that I'm now directing, kind of a few years later, shall we say.
I mean, funnily enough, I mean, it's a building that was obviously constructed in the 19th century, but it seems it could almost have been built for you. It's just got exactly the right shape for Cirque du Soleil.
Yeah, it brings us back to the old school circus with the ringmaster in the round, and it's got a very grand feeling, and we spend a lot of time rebuilding the show to make sure it fits perfectly in the Royal Albert Hall. So we have a new set that kind of enhances the shape and the curves of the building and just emphasises everything.
Sagi, are you looking forward to performing there?
Oh yeah, it's every moment on stage is a dream, but in the Royal Albert Hall it feels very intimate. You can really see everyone in the audience. You can see me as a performer. I can see the faces of every child, and it always reminds me, like, you know, myself as a child.
And also what you're there to do, which is to entertain, to lift the spirits, to make those people laugh and sigh.
Spread some joy, and there's a lot, you know, in any Cirque du Soleil show you have multiple emotions that you can have. There's a little love story, there's some risk, there's some funny stuff, there are things that you've never seen before. And as a performer, to perform there and to see everyone's faces, it's quite a unique experience.
That's lovely. Lydia, as briefly as you can, what dates, and are there still any tickets?
There's still tickets. We're here until March 1st. From today. We've been performing for a couple of weeks already. Got about 2 weeks left to come and see us. Absolutely
fantastic. Have wonderful shows. I'll see whether I can get down there and see it myself.
Yeah, see you there.
Thank you both for coming. That's Lydia Harper and Sagi Prasher. Well, that concludes the first hour of Sunday with Mike Portillo. But please rejoin me at noon. What are the ethics of blaming and sacking others when things go wrong? My panel will return to discuss that. Stefan Kyriazis has spent this wet week drying out in London's theatres. He'll join me to share his reviews. In his book, Prosecuting the Powerful, Stephen Crawshaw describes how war criminals are brought to account. And one of the remaining traditional canal boat painters in the United Kingdom will tell us how her craft is endangered. All that from noon. You are watching Mike Portillo on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Metropolis. Hope you enjoyed the sunshine yesterday, but it is starting to turn a bit more wet with some blustery showers across the rest of the weekend, which it will continue into the new week as well. But there will be some sunnier spells in between, but we do have this band of rain which is moving eastwards across the UK for the rest of this afternoon. It did bring some snow showers overnight last night, but a lot of that snow is now confined towards the southeast of England amongst this persistent rain that we have for the rest of this afternoon. There is some clearer spells across southern England and Wales, as well as Northern Ireland, but temperatures here around sort of 10 or 11 degrees, a little bit colder up towards the north where that cloud is a little bit persistent and we're not seeing too many breaks for the afternoon. Now that rain across the southeast will push its way off towards the North Sea. Like I said, there are a few breaks across southern England and Wales, so it will be a brighter end towards the day in between those showers. But further north, that cloud is remaining pretty persistent through the afternoon. We will see a few breaks across northern Scotland as well, but a few of these showers across those Scottish mountains are turning to snow for much of the afternoon as well. Now, as we go through this evening and overnight, those showers will continue to feed in from the northwest. There will be a few breaks across the south, once again, where those showers do start to ease, but it should be a relatively frost-free night, even in those breaks, so temperatures staying above freezing. But towards the northeast of Scotland, where we do have more prolonged breaks in that cloud, temperatures here will dip below freezing, and we could see a touch of frost first thing Monday morning. Now, Monday is much the same. Those showers are continuing through much of the morning. Some of them could be pretty heavy and quite blustery through the afternoon, but there will be some sunnier breaks towards the south and towards the northeast. But temperatures, once again, around the seasonal average between sort of 7 and 10 degrees.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's only 2 weeks remaining to see how you could win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash. Plus, we could be sorting out your summer with an incredible holiday for two worth £10,000, courtesy of Riviera Travel. You'll get to choose from 47 tours in over 30 worldwide destinations. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
May I be amongst the first to wish you a good afternoon. William Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing described February face, so full of frost, storm and cloudiness. And after days of just that, you're welcome to another warming and bookish hour of Sunday with Michael Portillo. Sir Keir Starmer has lost his Cabinet Secretary, Chief of Staff and Head of Communications. What are the ethics of sacrificing others while remaining in post? My panel will judge. Stefan Kyriazis has spent a rather wet week sheltering under proscenium arches. He'll join me to share his theatre reviews. How do we hold those who order mass murder to account? The author Steve Crawshaw gives examples of war criminals brought to trial in his new book, Prosecuting the Powerful, and he will join me. And one of the few remaining traditional canal boat painters in the UK will join us to tell me that, sadly, the historical craft of roses and castle design is endangered. Before all of that, your latest news headlines from Bethany Elsey.
Michael, thank you. Good afternoon. Your top stories from the GB newsroom at 1 minute past 12. Sir Keir Starmer is adamant he will lead Labour into the next general election, but admitted appointing Lord Peter Mandelson as ambassador to the US was a mistake. The Prime Minister rejected suggestions he should resign amid reports of plots within Labour to challenge his leadership. It's understood rebels are quietly lining up John Healey as a so-called unity candidate, while GB News understands Wes Streeting is plotting to beat Angela Rayner in the race to to oust the PM, with an insider suggesting Streeting will launch his bid after the Gorton and Denton by-election, which is held on the 26th of February. But Labour backbencher Graham Downey says the Prime Minister has his full support.
The Prime Minister has the full support of the Cabinet. He has the full support of the Parliamentary Labour Party. I fully support the Prime Minister. He does acknowledge this government has made mistakes and he's taken responsibility for those. But equally, this government has done an incredible amount of good things for people in Scotland. We've had increase in the minimum wage. We've lifted 80,000 children out of poverty. We've had record settlements from the UK government to the Scottish government that the SNP have squandered once again.
Meanwhile, the Shadow Foreign Secretary Priti Patel has accused the Prime Minister of desperate politics after he suggested the UK needed closer links with the European Union at the Munich Security Conference.
I completely disagree with his attempt to reverse Brexit. He doesn't have the mandate to do it. His approach is completely wrong. He's not transparent about this. And I have to say, it is desperate politics, basically, to appease his backbenchers and his political party.
A Labour group which helped make Sir Keir Starmer party leader paid for a smear campaign against a Sunday Times journalist. According to the paper, Labour Together hired lobbyists to investigate the personal, political and religious background of the reporter behind a story about the think tank's donations. It's reported the group paid £36,000 to APCO, a US lobbying firm, to discredit the Sunday Times by falsely suggesting links to Russia. At the current rate of progress, the gender pay gap won't close for another 30 years. That's a warning from the TUC. The union says the gap currently stands at 12.8%. That's the equivalent to more than £2,500 less a year for the average working woman. That means they effectively work 47 days of the year for free compared to men. In education, the disparity is 17%, while in the finance and insurance sector, it rises to 27%. The UK Health Security Agency says several children are receiving hospital treatment after a fast-spreading measles outbreak in North London. Dozens of infections have been confirmed across 7 schools in Enfield. A local GP surgery says 1 in 5 of the infected children were hospitalised and all of them had not been fully vaccinated. The virus is one of the most infectious diseases, and while many people recover, it can lead to serious complications. And a yellow weather warning for snow and ice has covered most of Scotland and large parts of England overnight. Meanwhile, the Environment Agency is urging people to remain vigilant amid the ongoing flood risk. More than 70 flood warnings and 160 flood alerts are in place across England. You're up to date. Let's get back to Michael.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Thank you very much, Bethany Elsey. Sir Keir Starmer's judgment has been questioned in the cases of Lord Mandelson, Lord Doyle, and the appointment and disappointment of Chris Wormold. Even his proposed choice of Antonio Romeo to replace Wormold has been criticised. Is it morally justified to ask or allow others to leave their posts when you hold your own? Can advisers legitimately be asked to carry the can? My panel has returned, the former Labour adviser Scarlett Maguire and policy fellow of Onward, Andrew Barclay. Andrew, shall we be honest? It's a nice fiction in political life, and I dare say elsewhere too, that when you're criticising someone, you say that they have been ill-advised. Another thing is that if you take a job with the Prime Minister as an advisor or whatever, or a head of communications, you must understand that one of the risks that you run is that at some point you will be sacrificed. Because in politics, there's a salami process. So people take slices off the salami. They're trying to get at you, the Prime Minister, and along the way, advisors are carved off and thrown to the wolves. Slightly mixed metaphor here, perhaps. And so perhaps one should just say, well, this is what happens, nothing to see here. What do you think?
I think one ring-fence, sort of isolated incident is understandable, where the Prime Minister genuinely didn't know about some piece of information or whatever. But when there's this salami analogy, when there is such a clear pattern of bad judgments, bad appointments, that is a fundamental part of leadership, is actually recruiting people, making judgment calls on them, building a team and managing a team. So when it's going on for so long, it does call into question the leadership and actual really weak leadership, which does create so much chaos in people's lives, people who have committed all their time and energy to him, but also an instability and a chaos that ripples outwards. I think it's the most unrelatable thing about politics, because you can't outsource accountability and responsibility in a small business or in a job. You get fired or you go bankrupt. And I think this culture of salami slicing just really puts people off politics.
I mean, I personally found it very insulting when someone wanted to criticise me and said I was ill-advised because I was proud of having made my own decisions. And the advice may have been bad or it may have been good. But, you know, what mattered was the decision that I had taken. I'd taken my own decision. And so I can't quite understand how Sir Keir Starmer can sort of put up with this idea that the actions that he's taken weren't his actions, they were somebody else's actions.
Yeah, well,
I mean, he's the top man, he's the Prime Minister. How can they possibly be someone else's action?
Completely. It points to weak leadership. It points to a pattern of weak leadership on something that is core and fundamental, which is judgment and team building. It's this ill-advised thing is complete unrelatable policy speak that is just no one in the public, in the private sector, can align with it or understand it at all.
However, sticking with you, Andrew, it's very clear that advisers are influential, and the objectives of some in the Labour Party were to get rid of Morgan McSweeney because he was thought to be a drag towards the right. And indeed, many on the left felt that they'd been duped. They'd been sold Keir Starmer as something that he wasn't. So from that point of view, the salami slicing has a purpose, it has a real effect.
Yeah, for internal party reasons it does, but I'm more interested in sort of stepping back and starting off with, I can't remember, was it Sue Gray first, was the first piece of salami that got sliced off before fed to the wolves, and now we're at Morgan McSweeney, and then there was a Lord, and there's Chris Wilmot. I mean, there's just so many slices, that it points to something that's much deeper, and there's always going to be internal party politics. That advisor, try and get rid of that advisor, but a strong leader should be able to hold them at bay and actually assert his authority. It's something he clearly is struggling with.
Scarlett, one area where I'm rather sympathetic with the Prime Minister is that, if civil servants underperform, I think it's perfectly reasonable that they should be replaced. By the way, when I worked under Margaret Thatcher, we weren't allowed to replace civil servants. She said it wasn't the job of politicians to replace civil servants. So sometimes we struggled on with desperately poor officials. The Prime Minister wouldn't let us replace them. In the case of Chris Wilmot, who obviously has not come up to the expectations of the Prime Minister, do you know, you were saying earlier that the real Keir Starmer is emerging, do you know what sort of civil servant the Prime Minister would like and what the Prime Minister would like that particular sort of civil servant to achieve?
No, I don't know. What I do know, and I agree with former Cabinet secretaries who say if there is a mismatch between the Cabinet Secretary and the Prime Minister, then it doesn't work and you have to get rid of the Cabinet Secretary. What you don't do is brief against them. I think you should never brief against a civil servant. Well, I think we all know. I mean.
Well, I thought I'd let the allegation be in your mouth rather than mine.
Well, I have read in the newspapers an awful lot of briefing, and it was one of the problems of Number 10 was the briefings against civil servants. I mean, Sue Gray was briefed against until she was got rid of, not by Keir Starmer, right? I mean, there was a turf war between her and Morgan McSweeney. I mean, the briefings that came out of Number 10, which we all hope have stopped. I mean, one day in the Sunday Times, 3 women cabinet ministers were briefed against, which is why Wes Streeting said when he got briefed against, finally there's equality. But I do feel very strongly that if you have an advisor who's giving you very, very bad advice, that they go. I mean, I've been an advisor. I remember saying to Harriet Harman, but what happens, I might give you bad advice. But I hadn't up to then. I mean, obviously, we would then have had a discussion. But I mean, if you're given really bad advice, then of course, I mean, you've had advisors. You go, no, this has to stop. I need somebody who's going to give me good advice. And I mean,
I can't believe that in the case of Chris Wilmot, it was bad advice. I mean,
No,
what many people say about him is he's a bit of a stick in the mud. He's a very traditional civil servant. So what I'm trying to get from you is the new Keir that you told us a few minutes ago is emerging. Does the new Keir want a vigorous, campaigning, reforming cabinet secretary?
No. You're trying to put words in my mouth. What he wants is somebody... obviously, he thought Chris Wilmot was the right decision. It was the wrong decision. It isn't going to work.
Whose decision was it?
I have no idea.
It was Keir Starmer's.
Well, of course it was Keir Starmer's, and I presume he was advised to take him. And it was. I mean, look, we all make mistakes when we hire people. He thought it would work, and it didn't work. Right? That there was no question about that. What I'm not going to start saying is who he's looking for. He's looking for somebody that he can work with, right? And he found he couldn't work with Chris Wilmot. I mean, these things happen in reality. Is you hire somebody, you think it's going to work out, and it doesn't.
Andrew, politics is a different world from business, and you have more experience of business than politics. So I'll make an assertion to you which you can discuss. So Keir Starmer, whether he's justified or not in removing Sir Chris Wilmot, will pay a price for it, because the civil servants will see this as a blow against the system, a blow against their integrity. They will think that the Prime Minister is scapegoating the Cabinet Secretary. This shows a disrespect for their position, in particular their independence. Can you believe me when I say that I think the Prime Minister will pay a price in the morale and the response from civil servants?
I do believe that, and I do agree that you have to have the ability to change civil servants. I agree with that. But I think actually the reason, this sort of lack of judgment that he's got is actually primarily been with privately appointed advisors or privately appointed people rather than civil servants. I think what he's actually looking for, in my view, sorry, Scarlett, is he's looking for someone to think for him, and he no longer has McSweeney to do that. A lot of his advisors are there to actually do his philosophical thinking because he is void of any of it himself. And that's why they end up having to carry the can, and that's why their advice carries some sort of disproportionate weight with him as a leader versus any other leader who recognises, well, that was my appointment, and therefore their advice is actually my responsibility. They're not just some randomly selected group of people who are giving him advice that he had no input with.
Interestingly, without a Cabinet Secretary, without a Communications Director, without a Chief of Staff, according to Scarlett, the Prime Minister has made 2 brilliant speeches. Perhaps you should learn a lesson from that. Thank you very much to my panel, Scarlett Maguire and Andrew Barclay. Coming up, when are war criminals held to account? Steve Crawshaw's new book provides the answer. This is Sunday with Mike Portillo, only on GB News.
He should have... The thing about Morgan McSweeney is he takes all the credit, right? I mean, he took...
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
He's Alex Young, 46. He lost his right leg below the knee only last year after a very old football injury caused a bone infection. And you now chose, didn't you, Alex, to actually have it amputated in the end because it was such pain.
Yeah, it was the best option for what I needed. 4.5 years of pain, and just needed it gone.
Yeah, but under those circumstances then, aren't you provided with... I mean, people would assume that you're provided with all the kit you need.
You are. You are given a leg from the NHS, and depending on how active you want to be, they're limited on what they can do. I wanted to do a 5K run for the Dorset County Hospital in Dorchester, and they can't provide me with a running leg. So they can't provide me with a blade, so the best option was to wait a year, which I didn't want to do, and I wanted to do the run in July. And And so I thought best option, make my own.
Now, as if you hadn't got enough to cope with, going through an amputation, losing your leg, learning how to walk on one, because you have an engineering background, you saw this as a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, and it keeps my mind active, because you could be sat recovering for 6 months, and I'd already done a year's recovery from an older injury where I lost a toe. That's the one I made from bits from eBay,
Let's have a
Amazon.
closer look at it. Yeah, right. So they are all bits of proper professional
Yeah, they're
legs,
proper
aren't they?
prosthesis parts.
This is the important bit you wanted for the running.
Yeah, that's the springback foot, so that's a bit of an active...
That looks almost like it's carbon fibre.
It is carbon fibre, yeah. And there's different categories and weight class, so depending on how heavy you are.
Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Mike Portillo. Until the Nuremberg trials of Nazis following the Second World War, there was little notion that crimes against humanity might be prosecuted. The International Criminal Court in The Hague hands down indictments and several high-profile convictions have been obtained. Do political leaders, officers and soldiers need to be wary of what they order and what they do? In Steve Crawshaw's new book, Prosecuting the Powerful, War Crimes and the Battle for Justice, the veteran journalist and human rights advocate records the advance of international law and asks whether Vladimir Putin or Benjamin Netanyahu could one day be in the dock. Steve Crawshaw joins me now. Congratulations on your book.
Thank you very much.
Can you give us some background? How did we get to Nuremberg? How did we get to a situation where at the end of the Second World War, war criminals were prosecuted?
Yeah, as you rightly said, that's kind of the foundation stone of everything. And I guess the short answer is with great difficulty. People had talked about it in very vague terms for ages, since the mid-19th century when the Geneva Convention started, after the First World War, and none of that really happened. And then you had the horror of the Second World War. And even then, Winston Churchill himself was saying, let's just shoot the Nazis, put them up against the wall. But the argument, both the Brits and the Americans, and of course the other prosecuting powers, felt justice was important and it's foundational for where we are now. Nuremberg is often described as victor's justice, and in some ways it was. It was the Allies, the victorious Allies, who were fixing things up, but that made the starting point of so many things that came afterwards, many of which we're only seeing the fruit of now, basically.
Yes, victor's justice and also an uneven application of standards. I mean, for example, It was decided at Nuremberg not to prosecute the Germans for their aerial bombardments of civilians, for the obvious reason that there had been savage bombardments by the Allies in Japan and in Germany.
Yeah, exactly. So the arguments flipped earlier in the war when they were first thinking. It was like, these terrible Nazi raids, which were, as we all know, terrible, the aerial raids. Many civilians died. And so that was potentially prosecutable. But as you rightly say, by the end of the war, it was far, far greater what the Allies had done. More than 500,000 German civilians had died. And it was clearly going to be so inappropriate. So the result was, OK, since we can't do it because we've obviously done the same, we'll just drop that bit of the indictment out completely. And that was just left.
Shall we move to Yugoslavia, in which I was involved as Defence Secretary?
Yeah.
So Karadzic, Milosevic, Mladic, all three were prosecuted.
That's correct,
These were Serbs, and atrocities had been committed, including the massacre at Srebrenica, where 8,000 men were killed in a very brief period of time. How did we get to that?
So, in a sense, I guess that was possible, again, partly just because of the horror of what happened in the wars in Yugoslavia. But partly that kind of opening up. The Berlin Wall came down in 1989. So we had 40 years of the Cold War where everything was as the word suggests, frozen, basically. It was on ice in many ways. You'd had Nuremberg, then you had nothing for 40 years. Then, and I was East Europe editor of The Independent at that time, the Berlin Wall came down and the extraordinary joy and the possibilities for so much change, end of apartheid in South Africa, end of the military regimes in South America. So much was happening. So at the same time as the horror of what was happening in former Yugoslavia, it was like, well, shouldn't we do something about this? But even then it seemed quite unlikely. So when I was working at The Independent, I was lucky enough, a bit through bluff and other circumstances, I got a meeting with Slobodan Milosevic, the then Serb leader, in a big fancy conference in London at the end of that. And there'd just been discussion. And I asked him, saying, well, you know, could you imagine that you may one day find yourself in a tribunal? And he, of course, said absolutely not. He was for peace and so on and so forth. But for me, more interesting than that obvious lie was he undoubtedly didn't think he would end up in the dock. I didn't think he would end up in the dock. The people who did create that tribunal didn't really expect it to go right to the top, but there was a new energy that made that happen, and that in turn led to many other things. For example, the International Criminal Court came more or less at the same time as he was eventually delivered. And I think perhaps most important with Milosevic, and true of the others that you mentioned as well, the Bosnian Serb leaders, it was their own newly elected democratic government that helped make that happen. So that's the key bit of when things flip. So it was the Serb government after his own people had overthrown him. And again, I was privileged that I was witnessing that as a journalist in the streets of Belgrade in 2000. And only like 6 months after his fall, his own government put him on a plane, sent him to The Hague.
But then is it another example of victor's justice? In other words, the people only are called to account when they've been defeated in some way or other, either militarily or politically.
Yeah, exactly. Potentially it is. And so on a couple of the big ones that we've seen in recent years, so Syria, for example, the fact that the regime has now fallen, now Assad is in luxury in Moscow, but, you know, he has zero value, so he might be handed over. With Putin or with Netanyahu, both of whom have arrest warrants out, very difficult to imagine things happening. The ICC doesn't have a police force until things change. But there is an understanding that it needs to be just the crime rather than who's committed the crime. One example, not so high profile, but kind of interesting, from the former Yugoslavia and from Kosovo, the former Prime Minister and President of Kosovo is himself at the end of a trial now in The Hague. And that's an example of like, yeah, OK, the Serbs may have, quote unquote, lost and the Kosovo Albanians may have, quote unquote, won. But nonetheless, if crimes were committed, they do need to be addressed. And that, I think, is the really big learning point for all of us.
Is the court taking an interest in Iran or in the fate of the Uyghur people?
I think, so Iran is really difficult because of technicalities of what the UN Security Council can and can't block. That was true of Syria also. But I think as regards the Uyghur people, I think that that's a huge change. It should have been there from the start when the court started 2002, so more than 20 years ago now. But there's been a very consistent approach of saying we need to go not just for those who are a bit weaker and easier to get to, but powerful as well. And when I met the chief prosecutor, he quoted King Lear, and I can't remember the quote off by heart, but basically, King Lear, there's a line in King Lear which says, if you've got a gold-plated this, that, and the other, you'll never be touched. But if you're in rags, you are easy to be pierced with arrows. And so the chief prosecutor said to me, that's not how, you know, he was right. That's how it has worked very often, but that's not how it should be. And I really hope there are many examples at the moment of powerful people trying to protect their powerful friends. That's, of course, true not just in international justice, but domestic contexts too. But I really hope that both in domestic and the international context, we can finally get past that.
And in issuing an arrest warrant against Benjamin Netanyahu, has the prosecutor, in your view, been even-handed?
I think so, yes. I mean, the great attack against him is, how dare you, and you're making an equivalence with Hamas. Well, he hasn't made an equivalence. He has issued, quite rightly, arrest warrants for the appalling atrocities committed by Hamas on 7th of October and other times as well. But it's terrible atrocities, so of course arrest warrants. But you can't look away from the fact that the Prime Minister or the Israeli forces, the Israeli government, have committed what are now widely acknowledged to be some of the most serious war crimes possible. And everybody from Israeli human rights groups to international human rights groups to UN commissions of inquiry have found that. So in a way, it's the other way round. And I think some people say, well, you can't go for them because they are our friends. And of course, that's not how justice works. You know, the statue on the top of the courthouse of Lady Justice, she's blind because the point is not, is that person my friend or not my friend? It's what have they done? And that principle is now being observed by the court, but Donald Trump loathes the idea of justice, and he's actually trying to destroy the court for trying to do that. And sadly, European courts, European governments, which were very important in creating the International Criminal Court, have been quite uncomfortable about pushing back on that. But I think they should.
Thank you very much indeed. That's Steve Crawshaw. And the book is called Prosecuting the Powerful. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Coming up, I'll theatrically review what Stefan Kyriazis has been up to. But first, your latest news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Good afternoon. The headlines from the GB Newsroom. Sir Keir Starmer is adamant he will lead Labour into the next general election amid reports of plots within the party to challenge his leadership. It's understood John Healey, Wes Streeting and Angela Rayner have support. The Sunday Times is reporting a Labour group which helped make Sir Keir Starmer party leader paid for a smear campaign against one of its journalists to discredit them and the paper. The TUC is warning the gender pay gap, which currently stands at nearly 13%, won't close for another 30 years at the current rate of progress. And the UK Health Security Agency says several children are receiving hospital treatment after a fast-spreading measles outbreak in Enfield in North London. Those are your latest headlines. I'll have more for you at 1 o'clock.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Hello there and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Hope you enjoyed the sunshine yesterday, but it is starting to turn a bit more wet with some blustery showers across the rest of the weekend, which it will continue into the new week as well. But it will be some sunnier spells in between, but we do have this band of rain which is moving eastwards across the UK for the rest of this afternoon. It did bring some snow showers overnight last night, but a lot of that snow is now confined towards the southeast of England amongst this persistent rain that we have for the rest of this afternoon. There is some clearer spells across southern England and Wales as well as Northern Ireland, but temperatures here around sort of 10 or 11 degrees, a little bit colder up towards the north where that cloud is a little bit persistent and we're not seeing too many breaks for the afternoon. Now that rain across the southeast will push its way off towards the North Sea. Like I said, there are a few breaks across southern England and Wales, so it will be a brighter end towards the day in between those showers. But further north, that cloud is remaining pretty persistent through the afternoon. We will see a few breaks across northern Scotland as well, but a few of these showers across those Scottish mountains are turning to snow for much of the afternoon as well. Now, as we go through this evening and overnight, those showers will continue to feed in from the northwest. There will be a few breaks across the south, once again, where those showers do start to ease, but it should be a relatively frost-free night, even in those breaks, so temperatures staying above freezing. But towards the northeast of Scotland, where we do have more prolonged breaks in that cloud, temperatures here will dip below freezing, and we could see a touch of frost first thing Monday morning. Now, Monday is much the same. Those showers are continuing through much of the morning. Some of them could be pretty heavy and quite blustery through the afternoon, but it will be some sunnier breaks towards the south and towards the northeast. But temperatures once again around the seasonal average between sort of 7 and 10 degrees.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company. Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Sunday with Mike Portillo. Joining me now is Stefan Kyriazis.
I wonder if that lady is a Labour.
That is because he is a theatre critic. And Rafa's here.
And Rafa's here as well.
Oh, in a Valentine.
It's for you. It's your little Valentine. There you go.
That is perfect. So, 3 shows you're going to tell us about today. The first is called Man and Boy.
We're kicking off, well, that's themed around us, Michael, obviously, as we know, the wise mentor. So, yeah, this is Terence Rattigan, 1963. Rattigan is normally sort of, he's known, he was very popular in his time, went massively out of favour and seen as very old-fashioned. It's all sort of buttoned-up Brits with everything sort of brimming and bubbling underneath. This one, however, is set further back. It's set in the 1930s, which is, of course, Michael, your era, your heyday. You're welcome, in New York. And it's all about finance and dirty dealings and a little bit about sort of what's going on now, sexual procurement, using people for power, all these sorts of things. But basically the dynamic between a father and son. And what we've got is a little bit of rehearsal footage, which is glorious, and you will see the incredible Ben Daniels in action.
Where's your telephone?
In the bedroom.
I shall need to use it.
All right. I won't be here.
Oh, but my dear boy, there's
And
no...
if you want to stay the night here, you may. I'll find a bed somewhere else.
But Carissimo, you think I would dream of turning you out?
I don't know whether you would or you wouldn't. I only know that I'm not staying.
How hurtful you can be sometimes, mon petit.
That does look rather gripping. Is it true to the original script?
It is, absolutely. But what they've done, now you can't see it there from the rehearsals, but instead of putting in a very sort of traditional, normally it's set in a basement flat, a very dingy basement flat in New York. And he plays Gregor Antonescu, who's an international financier, dodgy, and all his investments and companies are going under, and he's desperate to refinance or to pull off one last trick. So he goes to find his estranged son. So that was the two of them. His son has renamed himself Basil Antony instead of Vasily Antonescu, and is in hiding. So what we've got is a very traditional setting. However, we think we've got some pictures of the set and the people in action. It's just a green baize floor, almost like a snooker table, some people have said, so you almost feel like they're all being moved around. 3 big conference tables that they jump on and off of. And then at the back, a great big sort of neon billboard there, you can see it. And it has the cast and the names, and as people come on and off, their names light up. There's a door that says knock knock and buzzes and all the lights flash. So it gets rid of all naturalism, and everybody is very exaggerated, especially Ben Daniels. I mean, you saw that clip there when he kind of leaned in and smiled. He's charming and sinister. He was recently in an interview with a vampire, and it reminds me a lot of that. He'll move up very quickly behind people and then just be there. But it's mainly about him and his son, and it's about, he's a sociopath. He says love is the only commodity I cannot afford, but it's actually a lie because we're not sure he can even feel love. But it's fun, it's incredibly gripping. Some critics didn't like it, I rather loved it. It just doesn't quite hit you with the emotion at the end. But I think it's fascinating and exciting, and that one's on at the National Theatre until March the 14th. And I recommend it to see a classic done in a really exciting way.
Very good. That's a good reason to go. And then you've been to the opera, which is not so very common for you.
It's not so common. You know, well, I won't bitch about it, which I normally do with you. But this is così fan tutti, which means and so for all. Basically, everybody.
No.
Doesn't it?
No.
Doesn't it? I thought
you're missing a very important thing. So the last word is tutte.
Yeah.
Ends with an E.
Which is the men.
No.
It's everyone, rather.
No.
It? Oh.
It's women. So
it's the female, the E.
Women are that is what così fan tutte means.
Because they change it in the show and put the I on it.
Well, that's very interesting. You see, the women are inconstant. As soon as their lovers go away, they're looking for a new affair. And at the end, the old cynic says, this is what all women do. So it's a fundamentally misogynistic work, which I was going to ask you about.
I absolutely agree, because I took it the other way, that the women are not... It says at the start, we've got Don Alfonso, who's a kind of smarmy cynic, with these two officers, and they're boasting of their lovely women. And he says that all women are completely inconstant, can't be trusted, all women are the same. I felt it was... I love the production, let's say, first of all. It's set in 1950s Coney Island, and we've got a little trailer here so you can get the visuals. It's absolutely stunning to look at.
OK. Yeah, that looks very lively indeed. So I don't think we've mentioned before that it's at the English National Opera.
It is. So number one, sung in English. They make a huge effort. It's massively fun. The energy all the way is incredible. They come on at the start and hold up all these big billboards that say love, lust, intrigue, betrayal, big arias, chocolate, which is basically my house at the weekends. And then we go into this story, as we were saying. So, beautifully done, beautifully sung, beautifully staged, thoroughly entertaining. English translation, well, not even English translations, but English surtitles and sung in English. The translations are fantastic, very, very funny. Got lots of chuckles out of the audience.
Yeah, this is something that's happening more and more.
Yeah.
They're coming up with fairly free and easy translations.
Yes, very much so.
Written absolutely in a modern vernacular.
Yeah.
But some of them have you absolutely howling.
They're really, really funny. So I loved all of this, but with my friend at the end, we were both, yes, you're right. What they do is Don Alfonso bets that the women won't be faithful. So these two officers who are devoted to their women trick them, pretend they're going off to war, come back, in this case disguised as kind of 1950s rockers with silly quiffs and jackets with their names emblazoned in sequins on the back, and completely camp it up. All huge fun, except they're basically gaslighting these poor women. I'm sorry, and the women resist for quite a long time. I just think it's really unfair and really... My friend was like, the men are awful. And at the very end, you know, then they end it with all peace and love will save the day. And we're all kind of the same. And they change the E to the I, so it applies to everybody. Like, everybody is inconstant, nobody... We're all the same. Ha, 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 ha. And my friend and I were like, I would have slapped those men. Instead, the women are begging their forgiveness. So go for the gorgeousness, go for the singing was superb. Suave si il vento is one of my favourite opera passages.
Trio.
Yes, absolutely gorgeous. And
sending them off on their voyage.
And the trilling is absolutely, the gorgeous harmonies. It's Mozart, beautiful.
I will say that perhaps taking Mozart altogether, all his operas together, I'm not sure they are very misogynistic, because in other operas, you have very badly behaved men, and the women are absolute heroes by comparison with these dreadful men, and the women catch the men out in infidelity. So taking the oeuvre as a whole, I think it's not misogynistic. Anyway, so how long is that running?
Coliseum until the end of next week. And as you saw there, tickets from £15, free for under 21s. They are working so hard to get people in. And I will say again and again, don't be afraid of opera, don't be afraid of ballet. It's accessible, it's fun, it's thoroughly entertaining.
This is a good one to start with.
Absolutely,
in all
hugely
the
fun.
that you described.
And now we've got more sex, Michael. More sex and naughtiness.
Goodness.
Just what you wanted. So this one is Arcadia.
Yeah.
And we've just lost Tom Stoppard, so it's sort of poignant timing. This is his 1993. I'd say close to a masterpiece. It's absolutely glorious. And we've got a couple of the cast here talking about it to give you a little flavour.
Very good.
Arcadia is chaotic, fizzy, and it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. The writing is just wonderful, and the cast are just wonderful, and it's really fun. And it's really funny.
The humour.
Harry has chosen to stage it in a really exciting way. The ideas within it are mind-blowing. It will make you really think about the world in a way that you may never have thought before. It's life-affirming, and it's something for everyone. If you like art, if you like literature, if you like science, whatever you like.
Some quite big claims there being made by the actors. Does it stand up to the claims?
It really does. This, again, slightly divided the critics, but I have absolutely loved it. It's set in 2 time periods. So we've got the 1890s, which I won't say you were around for, Michael, and then the 1980s. Same gigantic country house setting, but this one, they've stripped everything away. So we just have a few chairs, tables on the stage. The stage is on the Revolve, and this is, again, Old Vic. They're doing everything in the round at the moment, all their productions, which is really rather wonderful in a lot of these cases. And this one, we start... Pretty much all of us agreed the 1890s stuff is the best part. It's absolutely wonderful. It's a very jolly light farce, a lot of wordplay, very, very silly. And we've got Thomasina, this incredibly talented young mathematician, a girl, a teenager, who would actually make these incredible breakthroughs. Chaos theory, iterated algorithms, all the stuff that I went into the arts to get away from. It can all get a little bit. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, the erudition of Stoppard is ridiculous.
And one of the extraordinary talents that he had was he gave you enough material on these subjects during the course of the play for you to believe that you understood and therefore could go along with it. I think that was a very...
Just about. Lost me here and there. But she is absolutely wonderful. She's with Septimus, her tutor. They're back and forth is glorious. And then Lady Croom, which was the blonde lady there, is wonderful. She just comes in and drops these fabulous one-liners. There in the past, her gardens are being changed. So her gardens were the Arcadian ideal, which was sort of all the rolling hills, beautifully aesthetic. And they're being changed now for the new, which is coming into the formal gardens, follies, Gothic things. And she hates all of that. So it's about past and present. It's about relationships, and also this idea that Arcadia was an illusion. It was brought in from Europe, and even in Europe, it was based on a fantasy of classical time. So none of it's real. And if you take all of this away, if our ideal is based on something not real, what are we left with?
Stoppard has educated you.
I'm going to leave you with one quote. When we have found all the mysteries and lost all meaning, we will be all alone on an empty shore. And I thought that was beautiful.
Absolutely brilliant.
Find meaning, people. Go and see that one, Old Vic, until March the 21st, and it's beautiful.
Thank you so much, Stefan, and thank you very much, Rafa. Coming up, we'll explore the distinctive Roses and Castles artwork often seen on Britain's canal boats and find out why it's under threat. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're heading to Europe this half term, well, it's a mixed bag out there. Outbreaks of rain and some heavy showers and thunderstorms. Best of the sunshine, though, really confined to the Canary Islands and towards the south of Spain. Otherwise, outbreaks of rain across Portugal and northern Spain. Across the Mediterranean, that's where we're going to see areas of showers and thunderstorms pushing their way through. Otherwise, best of the sunshine really across the Canary Islands, highs of 25.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
This may get you a little bit angry. Not that Alton Towers has cracked down on visitors with ADHD and anxiety for using disability fast lane passes, but the fact that they were around in the first place.
They say that demand for the Q-skip passes has surged. Well, not surprising.
No, well, the move comes as obviously we're seeing more diagnoses of ADHD and people claiming, crippling anxiety. Well, not even crippling anxiety, actually, because that's a different matter, but, claiming anxiety. The medication for ADHD has more than doubled since 2015, though it is worth pointing out for those people who really do have ADHD that getting hold of the medication is nigh impossible at the moment.
I think queue jumping is not the right word. This is about making a reasonable adjustment to help people feel more comfortable, to allow them to access areas and also parts of society that they may not otherwise be able to access. And I like to think that people I'd like to think that people don't do this to lie or to get ahead. I think they genuinely do need it, and I don't think we would be questioning this as much if it was a physical disability that we could see.
Golden Towers is a well-run commercial business, so I'll say something for them which they won't say because they look after their customers, but they've become aware that some people are gaming the system. And so they haven't banned people with anxiety, they've just tightened up the rules, number of people who can go with them and the border at which somebody can be accepted as having anxiety. Now, the problem is, let's get to the core issue. Anxiety is the modern day equivalent of, doctor, I've got a bad back, okay? You can get signed off with anxiety by just talking to a doctor down a Zoom screen for a few minutes and you're off.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Britain's canal barges carried not only coal and cargo, but a distinctive and decorative art form, vivid roses and castles designs that brightened the narrowboats and became part of our industrial heritage. Today, that centuries-old craft is officially endangered, sustained by only a handful of painters. In Brighton, one artist has brought this disappearing art form from the waterways to the city streets as a deeply personal tribute, and she joins me now. She is Heather, known by her artist name, Heavy Sea. Welcome.
Thank you.
A word of background. How was it that we began to decorate in this lavish and beautiful way, very colourful way, the barges that ran along our canals?
So basically, back in sort of the early 18th century, I think from talking with my community, the people that, you know, paint it today, it's all about, you know, making what was a small, tight, enclosed space, you know, in harsh conditions, making it beautiful. And also with the boat people, they were sort of perhaps shunned a little bit, looked down on in society. So it was a really beautiful way of them expressing themselves, you know.
How did they hit upon roses and castles as their themes?
So there's some mixed opinions about this. No one really knows because it's such an old folk art. But we think the castles and the roses were sort of reminiscent of other art that was going around at the time. You know, like on plates and clocks and things like that.
Yes. And I dare say gypsy caravans and,
exactly.
and fairgrounds.
Yeah, very
There's some
similar.
similarities there, aren't there?
Yes, absolutely.
How did you get into painting it?
So I got into painting it from, I went to Joby Carter's workshop and did a sign writing course with him, and he owned Carter's Steam Fair, which is an amazing, beautiful steam fair. And inside his workshop, there was these little hand-painted roses, and I noticed them. I was struggling with the sign writing. I saw them, and then it just came from there. The passion came from there.
Why is it in danger now?
It's endangered because there's just not really the working boats that we used to have, you know, in the between the sort of 1930s and the 1970s. They sort of, you know, they weren't running anymore, you know. There was quicker modes of transport to carry cargo and things like that.
So you found a way of taking the art off a narrowboat, as it were, and putting it into a different medium. In fact, onto a billboard in Brighton.
Yeah. So I was really lucky to be taught by Phil Spey, MBE, who is an amazing boat painter and a wonderful man. And he taught me everything I know how to paint roses. And then the opportunity came up to paint the billboard. And because it's part of my identity now, it just It's just natural. But for the most part, we like to paint traditional things. We like to keep it where it belongs on the canals.
Yes.
But this was a special project.
What was the billboard about?
The billboard was about my friend Jessie, who passed away due to poor mental health. And it was basically a memorial which I carry him with me in everything I do. So when I was learning to paint roses with Phil, he was on my mind. He was an artist as well. And I know that he would be here painting with me now.
And you painted in the same style, the Castle and Roses style, is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
But you haven't given up painting boats?
So I actually haven't painted boats yet. I will be painting boats, but I'm aspiring. You know, I'm not there yet. I'm just at the moment I'm still refining like the roses and the castles and the sign writing and everything, because it's a lot to be like a full-blown boat decorator, which is what my teacher Phil is. You know, it's a lot of hard work and a lot of, you know, refining your skills.
Have you any idea then how long it takes you to paint one boat?
Oh, I don't know. You'd have to ask Phil that. That's a better question for Phil. But it's a long time,
it's a very
weeks.
intricate process.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And what are you painting in? Because it's got to be resistant, hasn't it? You're painting in oil.
Yes, so it's an oil-based paint. It's called Craftmaster, and Phil actually started the company originally, and it's got a whole catalogue of heritage colours, you know, for steam railways and classic cars and things like that, you know, to make sure that these colours don't get lost into the past.
Let's hope the colours don't get lost. Let's hope that the skills don't get lost. Let's hope that we continue to see the canal boats with these beautiful designs on them.
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed, Heather. And thanks indeed to all my guests for joining me for 2 hours of fascinating conversation. Oh, by the way, I will be back, I'm pleased to say, at the same time next week. Now, when I was talking earlier about Cirque du Soleil, I mentioned that I had visited Montreal. It turns out it was in 2017, and they dressed me up as a bug, and they stuck me in one of these wheels. Yes, that is Michael Portillo, upside down at the Cirque du Soleil. A very enjoyable day. Now, up next on GB News is The Weekend, and it's with Tom Harwood. So, Tom, tell me, what's coming up on your show?
I wish I could match you, Michael, by turning upside down, by spinning around, but sadly, no, I am just stuck here sedentary behind a desk, but it is a busy show to come. Yes, has a number 10 linked think tank been digging up dirt on journalists that's reporting news they didn't like? The most astonishing scandal brewing today. Also coming up, energy, one of the building blocks of life and our economy. But are we about to sell our energy policy to Europe, letting Brussels make the rules, including taxing our carbon? Also to come on the show today, unemployment in Britain for young people is now higher than unemployment for young people in Europe for the first time on record. Could this be because of the battering of our pubs and our hospitality sector? And of course, as ever, rumbling on, is the Prime Minister safe in his job? How many days does he have left? Well, that's all coming up on The Weekend with me, Tom Harwood, after the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Metropolis. Hope you enjoyed the sunshine yesterday, but it is starting to turn a bit more wet with some blustery showers across the rest of the weekend, which it will continue into the new week as well. But there will be some sunnier spells in between, but we do have this band of rain which is moving eastwards across the UK for the rest of this afternoon. It did bring some snow showers overnight last night, but a lot of that snow is now confined towards the southeast of England amongst this persistent rain that we have for the rest of this afternoon. There is some clearer spells across southern England and Wales as well as Northern Ireland, but temperatures here around sort of 10 or 11 degrees, a little bit colder up towards the north where that cloud is a little bit persistent and we're not seeing too many breaks for the afternoon. Now that rain across the southeast will push its way off towards the North Sea. Like I said, there are a few breaks across southern England and Wales, so it will be a brighter end towards the day in between those showers. But further north, that cloud is remaining pretty persistent through the afternoon. We will see a few breaks across northern Scotland as well, but a few of these showers across those Scottish mountains are turning to snow for much of the afternoon as well. Now, as we go through this evening and overnight, those showers will continue to feed in from the northwest. There will be a few breaks across the south, once again, where those showers do start to ease, but it should be a relatively frost-free night, even in those breaks, so temperatures staying above freezing. But towards the northeast of Scotland, where we do have more prolonged breaks in that cloud, temperatures here will dip below freezing, and we could see a touch of frost first thing Monday morning. Now, Monday is much the same. Those showers are continuing through much of the morning. Some of them could be pretty heavy and quite blustery through the afternoon, but there will be some sunnier breaks towards the south and towards the northeast. But temperatures once again around the seasonal average, between sort of 7 and 10 degrees.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Make sure you don't miss the chance to grab an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. And that's not all. Courtesy of Riviera Travel, there's a terrific £10,000 holiday for two to be won. Choose from over 30 worldwide destinations like Thailand, South Africa, or even Sri Lanka. There's just 2 weeks left to enter. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
A very good afternoon to you. It's 1 o'clock on Sunday the 15th of February. This is The Weekend here on GB News. And it's another blow to Sir Keir Starmer as Labour rebels conjure fresh plots to oust him. Yes, a GB News exclusive reveals that the Health Secretary Wes Streeting aims to beat Angela Rayner to the punch in a fast-moving dark race to topple the Prime Minister. The unassuming Defence Secretary John